back to the Making Sense of Money podcast presented to you by P1FCU, where we tackle all the financial topics that matter the most to you. I'm your host, Tanis, and today we're diving into the world of real estate investing. Joining me is the owner and CEO of Unlock Real Estate, Jessica Bean.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. I know you're a busy gal, so.
Yes.
Well, let's start off with telling us your background. I know there's a lot there, and how you got into the world of real estate investing.
Perfect. Well, my journey started, I would say, back in college. So I went to the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising for interior design. And then I transferred up to the University of Idaho, where I got my bachelor's degree in interior design and my associate's degree in architecture. After that, I moved back down to Lewiston and I started working for a design firm. And I didn't realize that that design firm was kind of going out of business. And so I designed a couple houses. And then while I was doing that, I had a real estate agent approach me about getting into real estate. And at the time, I was like kind of unsure. It wasn't on my radar. I met with a broker and she convinced me to get into real estate. So I did real estate. I I was with Century 21 for many years, great company. And then I opened up a Keller Williams office, did that since 2019. And then just recently at the beginning of this year, we switched to Unlock Real Estate with Real Broker. And really just focused on our team. With that, along the journey, I started getting a heavy interest in real estate investing and what real estate investing could do for us in our financial future. One of the things I think that I didn't realize is being a real estate agent, you can make good money, but unless somebody teaches you how to take that money and invest it in real estate, you consistently have to keep selling real estate to have income coming in. Once I learned, when I joined Keller Williams, they taught me about real estate investing and basically using your funds to purchase real estate and create passive income, which then creates income coming in all the time versus having to go and produce a job to get that income coming in. And so that's kind of how I got into real estate investing. And since then, it is 100% my passion. I love real estate investing, and that's what I want to spend my time focusing on the most, in addition to having our real estate team.
Well, that's just crazy that it took, all the steps leading up to it to where you kind of figure out, like, you mentioned passive income, which is something we'll talk about later too. But I mean, something as you grow, I know speaking for myself as an adult, you don't think about that, like selling homes. Like you have to sell homes to make money. It's just like a W-2 job. It's like,
and harder.
So it's like, you're having to still do the things. And yes, they're, larger profits, but at the same time, you have to keep doing that in order to make the income. So investing is like a whole nother like mindset, like of thinking outside the box, which is
very much.
Hats off to you because that's a lot.
Yes, I love it.
What about your first investment property? Walk us through what that was like for you.
Absolutely. So my first real estate investment property actually came from my real estate sales job. So I don't remember what year it was, but I had a client that reached out about selling a property. It was an estate that they had acquired through the death of their parents, and they did not live locally. They were traveling weekend after weekend, coming here to get the house ready, cleaning everything out, getting rid of stuff. And they had asked me to come up and give them a market analysis. And so I came up and I ran numbers on the property. And at that time, like I hadn't even bought my first investment property, but I saw the potential in this home. So I was able to go to the client, do a market analysis of the current market price. And I saw that they were struggling with having to travel back and forth. And so I saw an opportunity to create a win-win scenario. So I gave them the market analysis based on the market. And then I came to them and said, hey, I'm going to propose something else to you guys. If you would like, and absolutely no obligation, but if you would like, you can either A, list it, or B, I would be willing to pay X amount of dollars for this property. And in lieu of doing that, you guys can pick out the things you want out of the property and then you guys can walk away. And so basically leaving all of the other stuff, not having to take runs to the dump or get rid of things. I'm happy to handle everything from that point forward. And the seller was just like, yes, like that would be
Please.
such a relief. She's like,
Yeah.
traveling back here all the time is
Yeah.
exhausting. It's costing us money. It's wearing us out. Like we would be so grateful for that option.
Absolutely.
And so again, the thing for me is just making sure that I'm very transparent in what both options look like. That way they can make an educated decision. And so I bought that property. That property we did very little renovations to. We literally took up the carpet. There was beautiful hardwoods underneath. I
don't you
painted
love
a
that?
few rooms, painted the kitchen, and then we just put tenants in that property. We had a fire victim. Their house had caught on fire. Then we had, then we had a basically traveling nurses. They each rented a room and they rented from us for a while. And then down the road, we ended up selling that property to leverage it to buy other real estate. So
Yeah.
it was a really great investment for us.
You make it sound so easy. I'm like,
In
cool,
my head, it
can I
is
do
really
it?
easy.
Well, that's good. That's what makes you good at it. I have so many wheels turning. So I want to stick to the script because I feel like this is so important for
Yes.
those of us who don't know what, I shouldn't say those of us, but like those of us, our listeners who
Yes.
don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there who do not know what they want to do
Yeah.
with their career.
Yep.
And hearing you talk about investment and being so passionate about it and sharing how you got started, it's all about, like jumping on those opportunities. So it is so cool that you were able to turn something into a massive investment for you now.
Yeah.
So it's like long game. It's not
Yes.
so much.
Everything's the long game in real
Yes.
estate investing.
Which is such a good perspective.
Yes. I have a website. It's jessicabeaninvestor.com.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
if somebody is getting into real estate investing, I think the thing you need to know is you hear all the time, like pick one thing and stick to it. But that's not how I do investing. I take multiple different ways of doing it and pair them together to create a winning scenario. And so on my website, it'll show my projects, all 17 that I've done, and it shows how I purchased it and what method I used to do it. And so if people are just curious about what that could look like, you can jump on there and look through those projects.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
And I love that you say it's win-win too, because
It has to be.
Yeah. You can't
Yeah.
just get into the industry and be not,
Mm-hmm.
just be one-sided on trying to succeed on your side. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
looking at like your clients that you knew what they were going through and you were like, like help me help you in a way.
100%. My favorite thing is helping people out of hard situations. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing more fulfilling than that. And
Yeah.
I've had that happen a couple times with the estates. I've bought multiple estates. And then also I've had people going into foreclosure. I had a guy that was going to lose his house to foreclosure in a matter of days. And I was able to come in and purchase that property cash and close very quickly, which allowed him not to have a foreclosure on his record. So and I also had a lady in a reverse mortgage. I mean, I've had so many
Yeah.
situations where I have made it a win for the seller financially so that they're not in a worse off situation if they don't utilize my services and what I can provide. So
Yeah.
it's really rewarding.
Yeah, you're like the real estate Batwoman. You're like, here I come. I'm going to help you. So you kind of mentioned what others could do if they're looking to purchase their first investment. You have a website. You're
Yes.
here to support.
Yeah.
What is some kind of guidance or suggestions you would make to those who are looking to start their own?
Okay, so this is a very easy question for me to answer because I wish I would have known then what I know now. So I have two answers to this. Number one, I would have seeked out somebody that has done it before me and know that no question is a stupid question. And so if I was thinking about getting into real estate investing, I would reach out and ask somebody to sit down and give me any advice or direction that they have instead of me just jumping into it and having no clue.
Right.
And then secondly, the biggest thing I would have changed in my own trajectory, and like even my kids, we talk about this in their future, is I would have started with what's called house hacking. And so house hacking is where you buy your first home, but you're going into that home at buying it as an investment property. And so the great part about this is you can get into house hacking with very little down. So if I'm going to buy my first property, I am going to get really comfortable being uncomfortable because one thing you have to know is if you're going to house hack, you want to try to do it every single year. So one, don't accumulate a bunch of stuff, save as much money as you can, and be good and comfortable with moving consistently.
Right.
And so what I would do is I would purchase my first home, and I would either do a small house like a 2-bed, 1-bath, or I wish I would have went and bought a multifamily. With an FHA loan, you can buy up to a 4-unit complex. And if you have the means to save up a 3.5% down payment, you can use an FHA loan to buy that property. You stay in that property for 1 year, and then you rent it out and you go buy another home. At that point, because you have an FHA loan, you then have to use a conventional loan. So there's different types of conventional loans, 3%, 5%, just depends on what you qualify for. I would have gone and bought my second home, and then after a year, I would go do it again.
Yeah.
And so the big thing for me, what I didn't realize is the power of appreciation. And although passive income is wonderful, and yes, you want passive income, I really focus my portfolio on appreciation. And so if when I was young, or even when I was going to college, because just side note, that's when I would have bought my first one, in college when I could have people renting out rooms. If I would have done that, if I did that for 5 years, that's 5 properties. If I did that all the way through my 20s for 10 years, that's 10 properties.
Wow.
That's 10 properties that are appreciating and adding to your net worth
Right.
that could completely change the trajectory of your future.
Absolutely.
So that's
like
where I would start.
Not basic at all, but that is like a good
It is
business plan.
It is really, really basic. I need to find a way to break it down basically.
Yeah.
But
it is.
yeah.
It really is.
Essentially, you just need your first down payment, 3.5%. Find something that will cash flow later, or you'll be positive in. So a small house or a multifamily, and then just rip off and duplicate every year until
so like that year you're saving for the down payment for your next.
Yep. And I don't want to get too complicated here, but if it was a really big appreciation year, you could, which we had a couple years ago, you could tap into the equity in that first house and buy your second house. But right now, the appreciation is less, and so that would be hard to do.
Right.
But there's options. So
It's all about the timing.
yeah.
So, I mean, the buzzword passive income, we've been kind of chatting about it, but how does that play out in real estate? I mean, in other terms than what we've kind of talked about already. And what does it look like for you outside of your investment properties? Is it strictly just the rental income and the money that's just coming in? You don't have to do anything. Like, what does that look like for you? And I shouldn't say not have to do anything, because you are doing a lot of things.
Forewarning, buying investments is there is work. Like there's no true, I mean, there is probably true passive income, but as you're getting started, you need to treat this like a job. Like you're not just going to put somebody in and expect to collect a check. Like things happen. So you need to be prepared for that. But as far as passive income, I think that is kind of a loaded conversation that people need to understand. In the previous years, passive income was definitely much easier to achieve with lower interest rates. And I see people not buying real estate right now as much because they're not getting as much passive income. Me personally, I am still heavily buying real estate. And for me, in the past, I have properties where I make great passive income monthly. Some I make $500, some $1,000, some $1,200 a month on, which is phenomenal. But right now, with the rates higher, getting passive income is much, much harder. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I focus on appreciation. Again, I should note that I have like an extremely high threshold for big risk gets big reward. And so you have to get comfortable with that. But for me right now, it's like, okay, I can still buy, say this year I buy 5 more properties. And to be honest, again, my threshold's high. So I would even be willing to take a little bit of a loss on some of those, like $100 a month, to know that if in the couple years forward, the rates drop, I can go refinance all of those properties, and then all of a sudden I'm cash flowing on all those properties.
Absolutely.
And so I wouldn't stop investing right now just because of interest rates, because again, I am still getting appreciation.
Right.
And my whole thing is when I get to retirement, how many properties am I going to have that are providing me paychecks to live financially free without having to work?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Totally. It absolutely does.
So it's a little bit loaded just because people want passive income. But what I would say is I would say these smaller properties tend to have less passive income. It's when you decide to go big on a big project, again, take big risk, get big reward,
Right.
that you're going to have more monthly passive income. And so that is kind of where I'm at in my career, is like I'm ready to go take on a big project, like something much bigger, where it will have a bigger reward for one project, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Absolutely. You mentioned multifamily
Yes.
in the beginning.
Yep.
Have you dabbled in that yet? Or-
I don't have any multifamily property, but that is absolutely the direction I'm going.
Yeah.
For me, part of real estate has to do with coming up with down payments.
For
And
sure.
I have gotten really good at creative financing as far as having private money and things like that. However, the private money that I have, I cycle it. So basically, I use that to buy flips, and then I flip a property, and then you take the equity from that and you can roll it into something else. But the multifamily, you need a much bigger down payment for. And so a lot of times, even if I'm leveraging other sources of financing, my down payment isn't big enough to go buy a big multifamily.
Right.
So that is where my shift is,
Yeah.
or I'm shifting my focus is trying to figure out how to use creative financing to go take down a big project.
Right.
Some of the things that we're looking at doing is like RV parks, mobile home parks,
Yeah.
storage units. Like those things really, really excite me, but I have to get focused and provide enough space in my daily schedule to be able to go tackle something like that, because it does take a lot of focus and energy.
For
So,
sure. I could only imagine.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced? Because it seemed like, I mean, honestly, like when you talk about it, you like glow. So it's clearly your passion, and
It
you
is
know,
my passion,
I'm sure
yes.
there are challenges. Can't be all perfect, but
Yeah. Well, one of my rentals just recently caught on fire.
Oh,
That was
yeah,
a
yeah,
challenge. I would say a tip that I have based on that challenge would be, when you start this, get a good attorney. I have a local attorney that is absolute gold. He is so incredible, and he has helped me put all of my contracts, my leases, and made sure that I'm protected. And so one, just making sure you're protected in that way. And then the other thing is insurance. Making sure that you have proper insurance on all of your properties is so important.
yeah.
Each type of property takes a different type of insurance. So the policy that I get for a flip is going to be probably course of construction, which is completely different than I would have on a short-term rental. A short-term rental is going to be completely different than you have on a long-term rental. The policies have to be specific for what you have in the property. And then also understanding insurance, because we're experiencing this right now with the fire. Again, learning experience, making sure you have adequate coverage for the property. And that is down to like, number one, loss of rent, because right now we're losing rent because we don't have someone in it. How much coverage do you have for that? For us, we have almost 12 months. But the insurance, the process of insurance is taking much longer than expected. So that your belongings that you have inside, if you have a short-term rental, having a list of that. One of the things that I did do was I went through the property and took pictures prior to each tenant going in. So I know what's in there, what's the condition, and I attach that to the lease. So those are things that I've learned. Another pain point that is, it's ridiculous, but it is such a pain point in my business, is properties without sprinkler systems. That's so silly, but every time I have a property without a sprinkler system, the weather starts to get warm. It's dying. I have people complaining. They don't want to water it. And so that is something I'm working on right now, is putting sprinkler systems in all the lawns of the properties that I own.
Which is like a big capital project, really.
Well, it's not too bad.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, I would say like between $5,000 and $7,000 probably to put it in. And to me, that's such a good return on investment.
Like, that's big to me.
Yeah. Well, when you're in the world of investing, like
Yeah.
those things, you know, you're saving For me, when I get rent, I don't spend the extra in rent. I put it into that LLC, and I basically have it sitting there until something comes up unless I go buy another property.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And then obviously life happens, and then
Yes.
you're sitting here and you're protecting yourself.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
Really quick, one note that I want to say, just because I'm spinning a little bit, is if you get into real estate investing, it is pertinent that you set up an LLC. So if you're going to buy a property, if you're able to, getting with an attorney, having them prepare an LLC and buying the property in an LLC, that's just extra protection from you and your personal stuff. It's just that layer of protection. Again, having a fire on one of my rentals, all of these things, that really makes me be like, what are the pieces of the puzzle that need to be put in place to protect ourselves and the wealth that we're building?
Yeah.
So
that's a good tip.
Yeah.
So we could talk all day about this. It's really exciting. But I do have one last question for you. And that is, I think you might have answered it already. Just, I could assume what your answer would be, but it is, what is one thing you wish you would have learned about money earlier in life?
Well, number one, it's actually not that hard to come up with the money. I think that was a limiting belief for me in this journey for a very long time, and it held me back. I wasn't going fast because I had such a limiting belief around the availability of money. And so you would be shocked at how many people, even in our town, have money, like people that are retiring or whatever it may be, or need to put their money somewhere and get a good return. So for me personally, getting past the point of, hey, nobody has money they're going to want to lend me, when I realized I could make somebody really, really good returns, it was a light switch in my whole investing journey. So right now I have a private money loan where I pay 12% interest on that money. And to some people, they're like, holy cow, why would you do that? For me, again, it's numbers. If I can make money and my private money guy can make money, and I can have money very liquid and available to move really quick to be able to buy the foreclosures or whatever it may be, like that is a game changer. So I would just say, don't let the idea of money debilitate you. Reach out to somebody that's done it before you. Take a class. Get yourself the education. It's not as hard as you think. That would be number one. And then number two, genuinely, every single person can house hack. Every one of us. So if you are young, start while you're in college. Put your roommates in it, have them pay the mortgage. And then if you decide you don't want to keep that property, I have experienced firsthand people literally buying houses, renting them out while they're in college, it appreciating, and they make money when they sell it.
Of course.
They don't lose money. And so basically you lived there for free and you made some money. I would hang on to it and continue to rent it, but I would start then, or start when you're young, and just be really, really good at being uncomfortable. Like,
that's the biggest thing.
Don't think you need all the, big fancy things when you're young. You have your whole life to do that. Put your money in your investments, and then your investments will pay for your life.
So good. So good. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. That is such good information, and I know that everyone listening or watching is going to think the same. So thank you for spending your time with us today.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. We hope you learned something new today and feel one step closer to making sense of money. Don't forget to check out our newsletter and subscribe at p1fcu.org. We'll see you next time.